Hey guys, welcome to Hedge. You're speaking to Matt again, the founder of this crypto educational resource center. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, it's important you stay to the end of this video so you could get the full scope of the information I'm about to provide you. And I just got to say one thing. Before we begin, this is not financial advice. We do not accept liabilities for losses that you may incur. And everything in this video is here strictly for educational, research, and resource purposes. So with that in mind, you're going to enjoy the topic of today, and that is going to be smart contracts. So smart contracts. What is a smart contract? In simple terms, it is a self-executing contract with the terms of agreement basically between the buyer and the seller, directly written in lines of code. Now, basically, this code is programmed to contain the agreements that basically exist between both parties, and these codes also control the execution, and all the transactions are technically trackable and irreversible. So what's interesting about that is so basically, when you would buy something from eBay, there's obviously an issue of, let's say, trust. Will I buy it and will it be what's presented to me? Will this happen? Will that happen? Can I trust the source, basically? So what smart contracts do is they allow you to basically have a trustless environment. And a trustless environment, the reason it makes sense is because of this. You put down the down payment on PayPal. You do it through a smart contract instead of PayPal. So this is like a comparison now, right? So the thing is received. Let's say it's good. Nothing wrong with that. Basically, you receive the good, then the smart contract releases the money through an escrow to the seller. And then people are paid, everyone's happy. But in the scenario where things go wrong, this is where it gets interesting. You receive the item. Oh no, this coin is counterfeit, for example. This rare coin that I wanted to buy is counterfeit, right? Well, if you were to go through PayPal, you would have to go through like a lengthy thing where you're like, okay, I want my money back. And then you got to basically contact the eBay seller and clarify everything amongst multiple parties. So it becomes like a he said, she said kind of thing versus a smart contract. It's like you receive it. It's no longer good, right? Like it's a false thing. Then the smart contract basically doesn't release the money from the escrow. And from there, the person who sells you the counterfeit or the garbage or whatever they're trying to sell you, they don't actually get paid. So it becomes one of those things where it could be very helpful in reducing the need for trust in these online environments. Now, that's basically one application for smart contracts. Another really important thing to mention too, a little tidbit, like a little informational tidbit for you guys, is basically smart contracts were created basically by someone named Nick Szabo, who's a computer scientist who invented the virtual currency called BitGold in 1998. And what's interesting about that is that basically the concept for digital money with a smart contract was already in the I guess like the idea tank, inside the think tank of Nick Szabo and whatever his team was for BitGold. And what's interesting is a lot of people, they were saying that Nick Szabo could actually be Satoshi Nakamoto. And I could see that as a definite possibility, but it was never actually confirmed due to the fact that he said it wasn't him. But the thing that's complicated about that is even if it was him, they would never actually say it's him, because then he would be a permanent target of like terrorism probably, and kidnapping, or a lot of really bad shit. And he's basically one of the three people that was considered Satoshi. And one of them is Dorian Nakamoto. Ironic, but it's not him. I don't think it's him. Craig Wright. Personally, I don't think it's him, but he does have some pretty big arguments as to why it could be him, but I doubt it. And then Nick Szabo is the last one. But that's just like a whole other topic of discussion. I'll get into like the potential people that could be Satoshi Nakamoto. I actually personally think it could even be Max Kaiser from the Kaiser Report. Very possible, because he came up with a digital derivatives patent in the 90s. So And he created something similar, like another online platform where he was, I think, selling virtual celebrity things, kind of like NFTs. It was really weird, but he could also potentially be Satoshi, but we'll leave that for another video. Now, another thing that's interesting about smart contracts is that beyond just like a self-executing contract, they could also be used for a lot of other things. And they were talking about the 58 industries that are going to be disrupted by it. And one of those will be financial services, which is banking. And the reason that'll be is because, think of it this way. Let's say someone wants to send money like on a global level, something big. You know what I mean? Like, let's say a few $1 million for purchase of, let's say, like goods across like an import. Well, before you pay it, you're going to have your contract basically there laid out between the two companies. One company is going to pay, and then the other company is going to send the goods. And when the goods are considered, not damaged or this, because it happens where goods are like that, then from there, the contract would be released. And another thing too is even in banking, let's say in that transaction that I just mentioned, for it to actually go through in the current world, you would need to have multiple people verify it along the way, right? So sometimes you could have 5, 10, 20 people verifying one transaction on a global level, which isn't really cost efficient when you could have a smart contract that does it by itself. So you've eliminated the need for those 11 jobs in banking. And another thing too is like just in general, like it's gonna disrupt banking because it's gonna reduce the need for a lot of people that are basically doing nothing in the system and getting paid with benefits. Now, that's where one of the main smart contract applications is going to be. Eventually, in a bank, when they're using smart contracts, there's probably going to be only like 2 or 3 people on the floor handling the let's say the actual day-to-day, and the ATMs as well as online banking are going to do the rest, if anything. And that's assuming that they don't get wiped out by crypto or become integrated in some way. The next thing it's going to affect is like stock trading and hedge funds. So basically, it's like they're already talking about how basically what's going to happen is like the process of buying and selling and trading stocks is going to be more similar to how like blockchain and cryptocurrencies work. So it's going to be regulated by smart contracts within the system that don't really need all these extra people financially advising or making the trades or doing this. It's going to be a lot more automated with maybe a few people that are running it. Crowdfunding is going to change simply because imagine instead of, let's say, one guy going trying to find angel investors, is just going to be like a website for angel investors and smart contracts, and people are going to pay wherever they feel is most valuable. So it's going to reduce the need for a third party even. This is actually a good one, is wills and inheritances. So right now, going through the process of inheriting a property after someone dies or a will is fucking complicated. You need notaries, you need lawyers, you need the bank's approval, you need multiple government documents, and sometimes even when you have everything, they'll still send you for more documents just so they can make you run a little bit more. And it's happened because, you know what, like I've seen it firsthand. I'm sure many people who watch this video have seen it firsthand too, where a relative might die and then they have to go through the complications of inheriting. And then sometimes, because it's such a complicated process for nothing, that what ends up happening is like some people, they won't even be able to get their inheritance sometimes for 5-10 years if the person who died didn't have their affairs in order. So a smart contract will mitigate that because the person will make a will as a smart contract, and when they die, bang, it's gone. It's done. The inheritance transfers over via an NFT, probably. And that's another thing too, the fact that NFTs and smart contracts are going to go together, and that's going to basically change how a lot of things function. Because imagine the ownership of a deed will become a transfer of an NFT through a smart contract that gets released on X point from the escrow. Now, accounting, that's just no-brainer because ledger technology is just way more useful. You know, loans, credit, insurance, all these things are going to be done by smart contracts. And this also includes like law. And I wanted to mention, like, because like right now I'm obviously just saying like, okay, insurance, this, that, but like it's not that those things are going to go away. What it is it's going to change how they work. So imagine instead of having 100 people running a contract, it's going to be 1 or 2 people, or like let's talk about it by percentage. Let's say a law firm will reduce its need for lawyers by between, let's say, 60 and 80 something percent. Because now, instead of everyone having to go through these complicated processes of, let's say, writing the contract and making sure that the terms and agreements are proper, like everyone putting their stamp and making sure all this is done, like that takes people, that takes manpower. But the thing is now when you have contracts that are being written in code, so they could come out much faster because they're being coded. But not only that, they could be, they're more or less like once one of them is made, like a general contract is made through a smart contract, like the coding aspect, people could reuse that contract, and it could become something where it's like, instead of having, let's say, every contract necessarily tailored, it's like you could take a cookie cutter arrangement and add what you need to it, and then just use the technology like that. So what's going to end up happening is like a lot of specializing in law and accounting and all these like specialized things. There's not going to be as much of a need for that with smart contracts, simply because you'll have a contract that's already written, a bunch of different templates, and you're just going to know which one to choose based off of being in the actual field. So that will definitely revolutionize not only those industries by reducing costs to a point where they'll be much more, let's say, just much more efficient, but also everything's just going to be a lot more transparent. And that's definitely going to revolutionize it because through reducing of those costs, we won't have to pay as much for that, This is another one that I'm going to get into in a second before I finish this thing. And basically, what I want to get back to on this is to tie all of this up. Or actually, you know what? I'm gonna wrap that up on the end of this video. Excuse me. So I mentioned the law firms. I've mentioned insurance. I've mentioned all these things where all these contracts are basically designated by almost a template and then adjusted as they need it. Real estate. Real estate's going to be probably one of the biggest affected by it, because now instead of having to go through, you're a person, you want to buy a mortgage. Okay, I got to get my mortgage broker and my notary, who's going to get the lawyer, who's going to get the bank, and then everyone's going to be constantly in contact with each other to make sure that the sale goes through, and then you're going to get credit checks from another company, and like it's just a lot of extra heads that you have to pay for. So it's like, let's say you're buying, let's say, $1 million home. I'm just saying that like as a number, let's say, because especially now, nothing's really going for that much less than $1 million. So let's just say $1 million. If you have to pay, let's say, between 1% and 3% for your mortgage broker, you got to pay your notary to make it happen. You got to pay your lawyer. That's all costs. That's pretty big. And 2% on $1 million, let's say, through a mortgage broker who has to bring in all these other people, and then the bank who's going to be charging their 3 or 4% on that. Like, you're getting raped by charges before you even get out of it. So there's clearly a need for this kind of technology, because not everyone could just go be a mortgage broker and a lawyer. We need people doing other things. Like back in the day, people were saying, like, you got to go just go to school, get a degree, and then, like, become a teacher and do all these, like, academic things, which aren't bad. There's nothing wrong with being an academic. But the reality is that there's going to be less of a need for a lot of it soon, simply because it's going to be automated by smart contracts. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, because a lot of these jobs are mindless, and people in accounting, like, there's not a lot of people that are really just genuinely happy to be accountants anyway. Like, not many people. Obviously, there will be some, but there's some people that will do it just because they're like, it's a safe job. Or I'm going to do this because it's a safe job, or I'm going to be a lawyer for this reason, or I'm going to do that for this reason, because it's considered safe, But the thing is now the market's saturated, and this kind of technology is going to cut that saturation probably down at least 50 to 60% over the course of the next 5 to 10 years. So in my opinion, what's going to end up happening is we're going to be looking at a world where people are going to need A, more hands-on working, but also B, it's going to be something that's way more important for creatives. I believe that creatives are going to be the future in the next 5 to 10 years, because as more people disappear from these kinds of jobs, we're gonna be in a job crisis at that point. And once we hit that job crisis, you know, like, people are probably going to be on UBI to some degree. And most of what we're going to be involved with is artistic endeavors. So it's almost like where we're heading as we automate all these processes is going to be like, people won't necessarily want to just be paying for jobs, but they're going to want to be paying almost for their humanity through art. Because you know what, like, imagine a lot of jobs are taken, you know what I mean? There won't always be a lot of different jobs. So what's going to happen is people are going to look for other ways. They're going to become online personalities. People are going to go into art. People are going to go into entertainment. There's going to be a lot more of that because there's going to be more of a need for it. You know, that's why I even think VR is going to be huge. Just because eventually we're going to get to a point where people are going to need something to do. And they can make money in the VR world at the very least. You know, like, I know it sounds like a crazy future, but it's very possible. It's a very possible future. You know, and like you could see here, there's a lot of different things. I'm going to post it in the sources of how all these things are going to be affected by smart contracts and probably blockchain as well as a whole. But, you know, we got a pretty big future ahead of us, guys. So with that in mind, hope you enjoyed this video. Like, comment, and subscribe. Keep your eyes peeled because the Patreon's coming. We decided we're going to launch it at 1,000 subs. So once we break 1,000 subs, it's going to be open. And then you guys, if you feel inclined, like you enjoyed this information, don't be shy to become a patron. So take care.